What if the person you think you are is merely a mask? A reflection shaped by fears, patterns, and wounds you haven't even dared to name? What if your entire life has been quietly ruled by forces buried so deep you mistake them for free will? We don't need more opinions. We don't need more distractions. What we truly need is more psychology. We need a deeper understanding of the human mind because the greatest danger to humanity has never been war, famine, or machines. It has always been man himself. Have you ever paused and asked yourself, who am I? Really? Are the thoughts you think truly yours? Are the choices you make guided by truth or by old wounds pretending to be logic? Carl Jung dared to ask these questions, and what he uncovered beneath the surface was nothing short of revolutionary. There is a hidden force inside you. It is at D, but it guides your steps, your relationships, your moments. You're inexplicable. This is not mysticism. This is, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same mistakes, sabotaging, getting stuck in the same kind of toxic relationships, feeling empty even when everything seems fine, then you've already been touched by what Jung called the shadow, the archetypes, and the collective unconscious. But what are these things? Why do they? And more importantly, why should you care? Because if you ignore them, you'll suffer and call it fate. You'll and call it bad luck. You'll destroy what you love and call it Carl Jung wasn't just a psychologist. He was a cartographer of the soul. He dared to map the internal terrain that most of us run from our entire lives. And what he discovered can change forever. This video is not a biography. It is a mirror, a confrontation, a guided descent into the truths you've been avoiding for years. But let me warn you, once you begin to see your inner world clearly, you can't unsee it. You will begin to notice the llNeverBeFreeUntilYouKnowThis. You will recognize the monsters within, not as enemies, but as that have long been waiting to be understood. And once that happens, something shifts. The enemy can become your greatest teacher, but only if you have the courage to face it. So take a deep breath. Clear your mind. Because what you're about to hear may be the most important truth and this is not just a lesson. It is a journey, and once you cross this threshold, you will never look at your life the same way again. Carl Jung wasn't interested in fixing people just to help them fit into a broken world. He wanted real healing, not surface-level solutions, but a return to the depths of the soul. He peered into the abyss of the human psyche, and instead of turning, he stepped into it. Born in Switzerland in 1875, Jung grew up surrounded by religion, mystery, and silence. Even as a child, he sensed there was more than what could be explained by logic or language, and he devoted his life to helping others see. It is no surprise that Carl Jung would rise to become Freud's most brilliant disciple. But what's remarkable is that he was also the one bold enough to challenge the very core of Freud's beliefs. Freud claimed that the foundation of the human psyche lay in repressed sexual desire. But Jung looked deeper. He saw that human suffering could not be reduced to mere libido. He saw depths, myths, archetypes, ancestral forces that stretched far beyond personal biography. While Freud fixated on the recent past, Jung peered through centuries. He unearthed the ancient, the symbolic, the eternal, and it was exactly this radical vision that led to their inevitable split. Jung did not want to simply treat symptoms. He wasn't content to patch the broken surface. He wanted something far more profound, to restore humanity's broken connection with its own essence. He saw the psyche as a living, breathing organism, teeming with opposing energies, light and shadow, masculine and feminine, rationality and instinct, and he believed suffering was not an error, but a signal, a summons to, in the place of Freud's limited model, Jung-Propo analytical psychology, a framework knew but to integrate them, to bring to light the parts of you that were buried, denied, forgotten. Because for Jung, the greatest danger wasn't sadness, or but unconsciousness. And if that sounds like a distant academic debate, think again, because this still matters. Desperately, today. Look around you. It's still stuck in cycles of still anesthetizing our emptiness with distractions, with drugs, with achieve, still running from ourselves. And Jung saw it all coming. More than a century ago, he warned us that society would grow sick by severing the individual from meaning. And yet he didn't just sound the alarm. He offered a W, not a shortcut, but a path. A compass to guide us in. He didn't hand out slogans. He gave us the uncomfo, inconvene, unfiltered truth. You cannot fix your life until you understand your soul. And among all his discoveries, perhaps none is more haunting or more essential than this. There is a part of your mind that is not yours, a hidden reservoir, a layer deeper than memory or thought, though with every other human being on earth. He called it the collective unconscious. This is where we go next, because once you see it, you'll realize you are not just one person. There are many voices, many stories, many living inside you. Most people believe their thought a product of childhood, culture, personal memory. Jung shattered that illusion. He revealed a deeper layer, more a realm beneath your conscio that holds within it universal images, sim instincts etched into picture your mind as a small island. On that island but beneath it lies a shared sea of inherited wisdom, myths, fears, and truths. This is the collective unconscious, a psychic realm that does not belong to you, yet shapes everything you. It is not a poetic idea. It is a psychological reality. It reveals itself in your dreams, your fantasies, the stories and the fears that chase you. It is why civilizations separated by oceans and centuries have echoed one another. In myths of heroes and monsters, wise elders and sacred, because deep down, we are not as different as we think. These ancient stories are not just cultural creations. They are reflections of something much deeper. They are the very blueprint of the human soul. Carl Jung believed that behind every thought, every emotion, every behavior you display, there lies an archetypal pattern, a psychological mold passed down across generations. When you fear abandonment, you're echoing a universal wound. When you long to belong, when you chase meaning, when you strive to become more than you are not just following personal urges. You are responding to forces etched into the very fabric of humanity since its beginning. And this is why ignoring the collective unconscious is not just ignorance. It's dangerous. You can deny it, dismiss it, laugh it off. But like gravity, it does not need your permission to affect you. These forces will express themselves in your relationships, in your career decisions, in the people you attract, in the mistakes you keep repeating without knowing why. Because you're not just wrestling with personal demons. You are wrestling with the inherited ghosts of all mankind. But who or what exactly inhabits this collective realm? What are these invisible entities that live inside you, influencing you, whispering to you from the dark? Jung gave them a name, archetypes. They are not characters. They are not fantasies. They are universal psychic structures, recurring themes of behavior, feeling, and thought that live in all of us. They are the inner heroes, the wise elders, the wounded children, the lovers, the warriors, the caretakers. But among them all, there is one that is the most feared, the one most people never dare to confront, and yet it lives within you. Jung called it the shadow. As long as you look away, as long as you deny it, it will quietly dictate your life. This is what we explore next. The darker half of your personality, the part you deny, but that watches you constantly. If this resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow, and it means you're ready to go deeper. Now, let me ask you, have you ever done something you instantly regretted but couldn't explain why? Have you ever lashed out in anger, then said, "I don't know what came over me"? Have you felt envy, jealousy, arrogance, but quickly buried under Shah? If so, you've already met your shadow. You just didn't recognize it. Carl Jung taught that every person carries within themselves a hidden part, a darker self, made of everything you've been taught to reject. Your unacceptable cravings, your suppressed rage, your silent insecurities, your selfish urges, your hunger for power, your all of it, locked away in the basement of your psyche. And here's the truth few want to hear. The more you suppress it, the more the shadow forms the moment you decide. It's the child who was told, "Don't be angry." The teenager who was shamed for crying. The adult who learned to fake a smile just to be accepted. You buried those parts, but they did not die. They began to seep into your life in subtle, destructive ways. That sudden burst of rage, that self-sabotage just when things were going well, that deep shame that cripples your confidence. It's your shadow, acting without your permission. It doesn't vanish. It shapeshifts. It appears in your judgments of others, in the things that trigger you, in the bitterness that lingers. And here's the irony. The more you try to be a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes. Why? Because you disown your aggression, your envy, your resentment, and instead of seeing them in yourself, you start see. You project your darkness onto others. You create enemies out of mirrors. And until you stop pretending, until you final, "Yes, that lives in me too," the shadow will keep pulling. Jung said it best. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is not a warning. Because once you see the shadow, truly see it, you can begin the W, and everything changes from there. There comes a point where you no longer run from others. You begin to run from yourself, from love, from success, from not because you don't want them, but because deep down you believe you don't deserve them. But there is a way not to annihilate the darkness within, but to confront it, to bring it out of hiding, to integrate it into your being. Because your shadow is not just destruction, it also contains something sacred, raw, untamed power that, if faced and harnessed, can become the fuel for your complete transformation. But this is not you must be willing to walk through dangerous inner terrain, to face exiled pieces of yourself, parts that were buried, left to rot in your unconscious. And it is precisely in this confrontation that the real journey begins. The journey of self-knowledge, the kind that strips you bare, that asks you not just to know your name, but to meet your soul. Carl Jung had a name for this sacred process. He called it individuation, a difficult road, a long road, but the only one that leads to true freedom. In the next part, we'll understand what this journey looks like, and why it's not just one option among many, but the only real path to becoming whole. Because as long as you live in fragments, you will continue to live in conflict. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be what others expect. They contort themselves to fit molds, to gain approval, to please their parents, to match society's definition of success. They become caricatures of themselves. They suppress their instincts, drown their voice in noise, and smile through pain just to survive. But beneath all that performance, there's a quiet ache, a sense that something vital is missing, not outside, but within. Jung knew this wound well. He named it the absence of individuation. And individuation is not some feel-good slogan you slap on a vision board. It's not about manifesting your best life or unlocking abundance. It is a brutal, honest, sacred process of becoming who you were meant to be. It means walking straight into the dark cave you've avoided your whole life. It means embracing the opposites within you: light and shadow, feminine and masculine, chaos and order, love and fear. It means breaking the illusion of the persona, the mask you wear for the world, and me self behind it. To individuate is to let your old self die, and to be reborn into something more real, more whole, more true. And here's the truth few will say out loud: this process hurts. It hurts because it dismantles everything it demands you to stop blaming other. It demands you to let go of the lie. It asks and start living to be whole. Individuation does not happen in a flash. It unfolds through crisis, through rupture, through loss, but secretly sets you free. Each time something in you breaks, a belief, a role, an identity, something new is quietly born in its place. But only if you have the courage to face the pain, to endure the uncertainty, to walk through the storm without turning back. Jung once said, "The encounter with the self is always a defeat for the ego." And he was right, because this process is not about becoming superior. It's about becoming sincere. Most people will never choose this path. They will settle for the comfort of not knowing. But for those who dare to go inward, for those who face what is hidden, there is a gift: freedom. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from the lie. Freedom to be who you are, not who you were told to be. And that is when the soul begins to speak. It doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in symbols. It speaks through dreams, through emotions, through images and stories. It speaks in silence, when you are finally quiet enough to hear it. And if you learn this language, if you choose to listen without judgment, you'll begin to access truths that your rational mind could never reach. In the next part, we will step into this mystical language, what Jung called the symbolic system of the psyche. It is the forgotten dialect of the soul, and it's time to remember it. And now, we begin to understand why your dreams might hold the very key to your transformation. In a world obsessed with logic and utility, dreams are often dismissed, reduced to random mental static, chaotic leftovers of the day. But Carl Jung saw something radically different. He believed dreams are the voice of the soul, enigmatic, symbolic, profound, never noise, never nonsense, always meaningful. Each night, as your body rests, something else awakens. A force deep within begins to speak, not with words, but with images, not with reason, but with symbols. The problem is not that your psyche is silent. The problem is you've never been taught how to lead. Jung understood that dreams are the psyche's natural attempt to restore balance. When your conscious mind drifts too far from your true center, the unconscious sends messages, symbols, patterns, images to call you ba. So dreams aren't just nightly hallucinations. They're guides, they're warnings, they're directions from a part of you that never stops watching. Why do you dream of falling when your life feels out of control? Why do teeth fall out in dreams when you're feeling powerless or vulnerable? Why does the same forest, snake, or stairwell show up again and again, even in dreams years apart? These aren't coincidences. They're psychic signals. But the soul does not use rational language. It speaks in symbols. And here lies one of Jung's greatest gifts to the world: the study of archetypal symbolism. Lions, snakes, houses, mirrors, forests, stairs, shadows. These are not decorative props in your dream. They are aspects of you, each representing a different layer of your psyche. A house may mirror your inner world, its rooms, your emotional states, its basement, your buried memories. A snake could represent fear, rebirth, or hidden wisdom. A ladder might point upward to transcendence, or downward into the underworld of your unconscious. A mirror? That might be your shadow, looking back at you. These images are not random. They are sacred. Each carries an emotional frequency, a function, a purpose. Learning to interpret them is like decoding an ancient language, the forgotten language of the soul. And the more you ignore this symbolic dialogue, the further you stray from your own truth. That's why so many lose themselves. They wake up anxious, depressed, confused, disconnected. But the crisis is not the cause. It is the symptom, a warning that you've stopped listening to yourself. Dreams are your inner compass. And trying to live without that compass is like stumbling through a maze with your eyes shut. So if you want to understand yourself, if you want to finally see the hidden architecture of your start with your dreams. Write them down, explore them. Fall because but dreams. There is something deeper, more ancient, a force that lives not just in your sleep, but in every relationship you enter, every conflict you repeat. This force has many faces, many names, but Jung called them archetypes, the invisible characters within you, the primal energies that shape how you feel, act, desire, and relate, even when you believe you're in full control. In the next part, we'll expose these hidden archetypes and how they have been quietly scripting the drama of your life. Have you ever looked back and thought, why did I act like that? Have you ever felt like a stranger to, or found yourself attracting the same pain, the same patterns, the same stories again and again? You are not alone, and soon you will understand why. Carl Jung knew exactly why we repeat the same mistakes, feel trapped in emotional loops, and sometimes act like strangers to ourselves. It's Bay. Not metaphors, not abstraction psychic characters that don't just influence our decisions. They script our Jung called them archetypes. These are not ideas we learned. They are universal blueprints of the human psyche. They are ancient patterns, they are the soul's inherited language, passed from generation to generation. And they are always active, whether we recognize them or not. Each archetype carries its own energy, its own storyline, its own emotional rhythm. And here's the unsettling truth. You could spend your entire life under the control of an archetype. With Jung identified many of these archetypes. The hero, for example, is the force that drives us to overcome adversity, to conquer, to prove, to rise. The wise old man or wise woman seeks truth, insight, understanding. The shadow, as we've explored, contains everything we've repressed, denied, or disowned. And then there's the anima and animus, the feminine energy that lives in the unconscious of men, and the masculine energy embedded in the unconscious of women. To be whole, these energies must be reconciled, not rejected. But these are not passive concepts. They are living energies. When an archetype dominates your psyche, it doesn't knock and ask to come in. It possesses you. It takes the wheel of your mind and drives your life with its own agenda. That's why you sometimes feel like a different person, why certain relationships feel scripted, as if you're trapped in a play that repeats no matter what you do. You're not going crazy. You're under the grip of an activated archetype. For example, the person who is always saving others, even while destroying themselves inside. They may be ruled by an inflated hero archetype, someone constantly craving approval, terrified of being abandoned. They may be caught in the web of the wounded child, those drawn again and again to toxic chaos. They may be living under the command of a repressed shadow, acting out the darkness they refuse to face. But here is the liberating truth. These archetypes are not your enemies. They become dangerous only when they operate unconsciously. When you recognize them, when you integrate them, they transform into power. They become keys, portals to deeper self-understanding. You begin to see patterns in your behavior not as curses, but as clues. You begin to ask, who is speaking inside me right now? And with that question, you take back the narrative. You stop being a puppet. You become the playwright. But this requires consciousness. You must learn to decode these inner voices, to trace the symbols that show up in your reactions, your dreams, your cravings, your fears, because only then can you reclaim authorship of your own life. And that is precisely why Jung's work is more urgent now than ever before. In a world full of noise, we've become deaf to the voice within. We are bombarded by screens, messages, images, chased by deadlines, numbed by distraction, lulled into passivity by endless dopamine loops. We are always connected, yet deeply disconnected from our inner compass. And the result? An epidemic of emptiness. A silent spiritual crisis that hides behind the labels of stress, burnout, depression, anxiety. But Jung foresaw this collapse, and he left behind a map. In the next part, we'll uncover why his ideas hold the antidote to the modern psychic breakdown, and how they can reconnect you with the only source of meaning that never fades, your inner self. If what you're hearing resonates with you, my ebook, Beyond the Shadow, explores these ideas more deeply and gives you practical tools to begin your transformation. The link is in the pinned comment, because even in an age of information overload, the soul still speaks. And perhaps now, for the first time, you're ready to listen. Who am I? Really? That question has haunted countless souls, and it is precisely at this moment of inner crisis that Carl Jung's work becomes more vital than ever. Jung did not offer comforting slogans. He didn't promise happiness through pills or preach success through blind positivity. What he gave was far more powerful, a path back to the soul, a journey of reintegration, a return to everything that modern life has tried to erase, our depth, our mystery, our contradictions. He saw it coming, the collapse of identity, the corrosion of meaning in a world obsessed with productivity, appearance, and performance. He warned us that when we wear masks too long, we forget who we are beneath them, that by ignoring the shadow, we become slaves to the forces we refuse to admit exist, that when we laugh at dreams, we cut off the bridge to our unconscious, that when we dismiss symbols and archetypes, we lose the very map of our being. He wrote these truths decades ago, and yet it feels like he wrote them for today. A world of people feeling hollow, even when surrounded by achievements, relationships that feel more like transactions than bonds. Young people facing existential crises at 22, their souls screaming for something real in a society that offers only filters and distractions. The world told us we could live only on the surface, but the soul will not be silenced. And when it screams, it doesn't ask for likes. It demands meaning. It demands depth. It demands that you come home. Jung was not a therapist for times of peace. He was a guide for times of collapse, times like now, because when everything outside begins to lose its meaning, status, success, control, you are forced to turn inward. And yes, that journey inward is terrifying. You won't only find your light, you'll face monsters, old wounds, masks you've forgotten you wore. But buried beneath all of it is something no one can give you. Your true self. You won't heal your life with motivational slogans. You won't transform by skimming the surface. But if you have the courage to face yourself, to strip away the illusions, to step into what Jung called inner transformation, then yes, there is hope. That is what this video was made to remind you. There is a way back. Your pain has meaning. You are not broken. You are just fragmented, and you can become whole again. But what does that look like in real life? How do you begin? How do you move from theory to transformation? In the final part, we'll close this dive with one raw, essential truth. Why this very moment could be the turning point your soul has been waiting for. Because let's be honest, you've spent your whole life trying to fit in, trying to protect yourself, trying to belong. You wore strength as armor even when you were shattered inside. You smiled while silently screaming for help. And, somewhere along the way, you forgot who you really are. You lost touch with your essence, your mystery, your chaos, your soul. But something inside you has awakened. And no, it's not a coincidence that you're here. Jung believed there are no true coincidences. Even the most accidental encounter is a message from the unconscious. Maybe this video is that message. A call. A call to stop running. A call to stop lying to yourself. A call to leave the shallow waters and dive into the depths of your psyche. Jung's message is not easy. It demands pain. It demands responsibility. But it is also liberating. Because the moment you understand that you're not broken, just unconscious, you reclaim your power. The power to change. The power to integrate. The power to finally heal. No, you don't need to understand everything at once. You don't need to decode every dream or name every archetype. What you need is the first step, honesty. The step of saying, enough. Enough pretending. Enough numbing. Enough living on autopilot. Because now you know. And once truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. So here's my invitation. If something in this video shook you awake, say it. Write it in the comments. Which idea pierced you the most? Which truth forced you to stop and look? Which part of your shadow are you finally ready to face? Put it into words. Because to name it is to bring it into the light. And that is where healing begins. And if you found this video powerful, the next one is even more vital. It continues this journey inward because the soul, once awakened, wants more. So click on the next video. Let's keep going because you are only at the beginning of the most important transformation of your life. See you there.